We weren't supposed to land there. The last transmission from that valley ended mid-word, like someone muted reality itself. When we dropped in, it was wrong from the start. No birds, no bugs, just hot, wet silence, like the jungle was holding its breath. Alvarez picked up the first signal. Not enemy comms, not animal. It was Morse code, with a heartbeat underneath. It spelled our call sign. Echo. Again and again. Echo. 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 The cameras already recording before we even set them up. And then something saluted us from the trees. No face, just the gear and boots. Boots with no legs under them. I don't know what Echo Talon found in that valley, but I know what followed us home. I wasn't supposed to lead Echo Talon, not for this one. But when Lieutenant Granger's helo went down during recon, I got bumped up the chain. No time to ask why, only orders, coordinates, and a warning from General Holloway. You find out why that Green Beret platoon went silent, and you do it quietly. We'd done black missions before. Panama, Laos, Berlin. Cleanup work for ops that never officially happened. But this felt colder, buried. They flew us in low under moonlight. No briefing, no backup. Just a folder full of static-laced comms and half-redacted aerials of a jungle valley north of the DMZ. The file labeled it Operation Black Valley. No details, no escape plan. Just the line. Recover what can be recovered. Erase the rest. My team didn't ask questions. Ward checked our meds. Knox calibrated long-range comms. Flint scanned for thermals. Alvarez. He just stared out the window, fingers twitching like he already knew something wasn't right. The LZ was a dead clearing. No sounds, no rotors in the air. Even the crickets stayed silent. As we disembarked, I spotted what looked like drag marks across the soil. Deep, wide, and scattered, like something was pulled into the tree line. I radioed base. Static. Just a pulse. We weren't just here to investigate. We were already inside something. We moved fast. Standard protocol. Sweep. Establish a perimeter. Get eyes on the valley. But the jungle wasn't right. Knox confirmed it first. Comms are bouncing, sir. Like there's feedback. Not ours. The signal kept looping back with faint Morse. Distorted. The clicks were wrong. Too fast. And something beneath it. A wet texture to the static, like breathing through water. Flint called out over the ridge. Thermals picking up movement. Too big for deer. Four-legged, maybe. The clearing we set camp in had signs of struggle. US gear torn to ribbons, boots half buried, and one canteen melted around a rock like it had been exposed to heat far beyond this jungle's reach. Alvarez knelt near what looked like a broken compass. Needles spinning, no magnet pull. He held up his arm and frowned. Static shocks. Air's got charge in it. I told him to gear up. Double perimeter sweep. Flint took overwatch. Knox logged the signal glitch. Ward started marking body zones for medevac, even though we hadn't found any bodies. And then Betty barked. The Brits left us their old mutt before rotating out. Half-starved shepherd mix. She stood near the edge of camp, tail down, growling low at the trees. Nothing moved, but she didn't stop. I scanned with NV, saw nothing. But in the treetops, the branches swayed like something passed through them without touching. It was the silence. That's what got to me. No wind, no buzz, just breath. Like the jungle was waiting. And somewhere behind us, Betty whimpered. We turned, and she was gone. We ran a 5-man search sweep for Betty. No tracks, no yelps. Just more of that goddamn static on Knox's headset. Louder now. Sir, I think the transmission's copying us, Knox said. He played it back. Chopped radio bursts cut with our own words. Perimeter hold. Maddox. Sweep left. Hold. 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 It wasn't playback. It was repeating us before we even said it. Knox turned pale. Sir, I don't think this is interference. It's predicting us. Ward wanted to chalk it up to faulty gear. Maybe some old Soviet relay buried in the terrain messing with our bands. But that theory broke fast when Alvarez picked up a boot near the stream. Still laced, blood inside. The kind of blood you only get from a neck hit, but no body. Flint scanned tree lines again. There's movement, but I'm not getting heat. No contrast. I checked the GPS. It said we were 20 kilometers off course. We weren't. We were exactly where we landed. I marked it myself. But Knox's equipment, mine, even the reserve sat map, showed us drifting into terrain that didn't match any grid we carried. How many teams got sent in before us? Ward asked quietly. I didn't answer. We both knew the real number wasn't in the briefing packet. Alvarez froze near a tree trunk. Captain, this isn't bark. He ran a hand over it. It was a scratched surface, carved with repeated symbols, circles inside circles, and one word, in English, alive. We pulled back toward the LZ, but something followed. We didn't hear it. We felt it. Behind us, the static grew louder again, and this time, it was breathing. We circled back to camp just before dusk, trying not to show the rook we were rattled. But the air was wrong, charged like the sky before a monsoon, only no clouds overhead. Ward had set up a small med zone. He stood over a shallow depression in the dirt. Didn't dig this, he said. It was already here. He'd found something half buried, metal fragments, bits of bone, a cracked helmet that looked American, but the inside was blackened, warped, like it had been flash burned from the inside out. I brushed the dirt away from one of the fragments. Dog tag, burned edges, barely legible. Willard, O+, U.S. Army. But the chain was melted into it, fused. Flint crouched beside me, chewing a piece of gum like always. Looks recent, he muttered. No rust, no corrosion. Ward checked the femur he'd unearthed. Too clean, no scavenger marks, no decomposition, like it was preserved. I didn't like where my head was going. Knox tried to scan the comms again, hoping for a link back to base. Instead, he picked up a whispering loop, chopped phrases layered over each other in different voices. Turn back. It sees. He's still in the roots. Alvarez started muttering. Quiet. I leaned in and heard it. Echo, echo. I hear us. I hear us in the dirt. That was the first time I wondered if Alvarez was going to hold. We burned the tags and the bones, but before I lit the fire, I looked down and noticed something carved into the underside of the skull plate. Not with a knife, deeper, like from pressure or heat. A matching glyph, circle inside circle, with jagged lines radiating outward like a sun. Same as the tree, same as the whisper. Sir, Flint said, voice low. Why is it always watching from the tree line, never moving? I didn't have an answer, but I saw it too. We set up the long-range comms rig behind the bivouac line, half buried in wet earth and twisted vine. Knox and I were the last ones on night rotation, running diagnostics while the others caught sleep. Static had turned to pulse, rhythmic, faint, like it was timing something. Still piggybacking off those repeaters near Conthean, Knox muttered, checking signal strength. But whatever's leaking through, it ain't us. He adjusted the squelch. The static shifted, and then came the sound. It started as a whistle, low, nearly drowned in the background noise, but it rose in pitch and folded in on itself like some corrupted version of Morse code. Not beeps, growls, something snarling in binary. "Get that on tape," I told him, already rolling. The temperature dropped, not metaphorically. Our breath fogged. Equipment hissed from condensation. My skin prickled under the flak jacket. Then, a voice. Not over the headset, through the speaker itself, low and dry. "Knows your shape." It buried the first ones. "Knows your name." I killed power on the rig. Knox kept staring. He didn't move for a full 30 seconds. "You okay, Reggie?" He blinked, finally spoke. It sounded like my brother. Knox's brother died in '66, Mekong Delta, whole patrol wiped. He'd told me once, over bourbon and bad weather. We called it in over backup comms. Response from command was short. "Continue mission. Disregard foreign interference." Except, this wasn't interference. 20 minutes later, I found Alvarez squatting near the edge of the ridge, muttering into his fist. "Who you talking to, Cal?" His head turned slow. His eyes didn't look right. "Don't you hear it? It's breathing through the trees." The jungle went silent again. Too silent. Then came the first scream. Not human, but close. Day 6. Dawn broke sickly. Green light pushing through the canopy, like it didn't belong. The jungle smelled different. Spoiled metal and mold, like blood left out too long. We pushed west, deeper into the ridgeline. Flint took point. Alvarez stayed back with Knox. I kept checking our 6. Something in me wouldn't let it go. Then Ward called out, low, clipped. "Trail cam's gone." I moved over. He was crouched by a trunk where we'd planted one of our perimeter recon cams the night before. The steel bracket was there, the wiring too. But the lens, shattered from the inside out. We scanned the footage off the external drive. Nothing. Then, 3 frames, static, movement, a silhouette. And for one blink of a second, something saluting. No uniform, no gear. Just a dark, upright figure with a sunken head and arms too long for its body. Ward rewound the footage, froze it. We all stared. "That's not one of ours," Flint said. "No timestamp either," Knox added. "File structure's corrupted, like it was rewritten." We kept moving, weapons tight. Nobody said it, but every one of us was thinking the same thing. This was no longer a recon op. We reached what was left of the old LZ Bravo checkpoint by 1100. What we found wasn't an outpost. It was a crater. Flattened trees in a perfect circle. Charred. No heat signature. Like something had pulsed from the inside and wiped it all clean. Boone lifted a piece of twisted metal out of the ash, stamped on it, SSSR, schist, Soviet. "Why would Russian tags be out here?" Ward asked. "Same reason we are," I muttered, "looking for something they lost." Just before we pulled out, Knox's receiver clicked on again. A woman's voice whispered through the static. "Echo Talon. Welcome back." We set camp inside the shell of an old radio relay shack. Collapsed roof, rusted panel walls, still had 2 good corners. It wasn't safe, but it was structure. Alvarez was shaking, not from the cold. He kept whispering to himself, fingers twitching against the grip of his rifle. I pulled him aside. "You good, Private?" He nodded, then shook his head. "It watches in the canopy," he muttered. "Every time I blink, like it waits for that half second." I didn't push. Kid was raw, still green. But his fear wasn't theatrical, it was cellular. Whatever he'd seen, it branded him. Knox was messing with the long-range rig we found in the corner of the shack. He'd hot-wired it off our spare battery packs, static mostly. Then something cut through, 3 tones, short, long. A pulse, repeating. "Morse?" I asked. Knox nodded, typed it out. Run. The rig shorted. Sparks kissed his fingertips. He flinched but kept his eyes on the console. Boone called from outside. You need to see this. We stepped out. He was aiming his scope at the tree line above camp, north quadrant. He handed it to me without a word. Through the lens, a shape, just beyond resolution. Humanoid, crouched on a thick branch. Its limbs were too long. Its skin, shiny, black, reflecting light where no sun should reach. I adjusted the zoom. It blinked. Not eyelids, membranes, transparent, like a lizard. And it didn't run when I locked eyes. It tilted its head. I dropped the scope. Knox, cut the lights, full blackout. We killed every lumen, sat in that humid dark, with our rifles pointed at the trees. No one spoke, until Ward broke the silence. It's moved. It's closer. Boone's voice came low over the comms. I think it's circling us, but the jungle's not the same shape it was 5 minutes ago. The jungle never slept, but that night, it felt like it held its breath. Boone and I took first watch. Nothing moved, not even the bugs. It was like the ecosystem had evacuated. I kept my sights on the ridge, but the ridge was gone, like it had shifted 5 degrees west. Boone noticed it too. You ever seen jungle do that? He asked, eyes never leaving the scope. No, I said, but I've seen maps lie. An hour into the shift, I called Ward for rotation. No response. We checked his sleeping bag. Still zipped, still warm. His boots were gone. Alvarez claimed he'd seen him get up for a piss, maybe 20 minutes ago. I flared the perimeter and had us sweep 5 meters out. Tight diamond, radios live. But the jungle seemed thicker. Trees leaned in where they hadn't before. Then Boone stopped dead. He was staring at something under a fig tree, half buried in moss. Ward's boots, both of them, aligned perfectly, heels together, facing the camp. That's when Knox's voice cracked in over comms, shaking. I got movement on thermal, 5 meters east of you. It's tall, too tall, 6, 7 feet. Jesus, it's walking like Ward, but it's not Ward. We spun and saw nothing. Knox cursed. It just disappeared. We regrouped back at the shack. Knox played back the thermal footage. The shape had human gait, but the proportions were wrong. Arms longer than the legs, head slightly angled forward. It walked in a loop, before vanishing into a cold spot. Boone looked at me and said it out loud. We're being patterned. I turned off the screen, and for a split second, I saw a faint shape standing behind us in the camera feed. Watching. Not moving. Just there. The next morning, the jungle floor had changed color. Where Ward vanished, the dirt was no longer dark and damp. It had turned a thick, oxidized red, like dried blood mixed with clay. Alvarez knelt to touch it, but I barked at him to stop. Something about it looked wrong. Too uniform. No boot prints, no animal tracks. Just smooth, dry soil in a perfect 6-foot oval. We took samples, sealed them, but I doubted they'd reach any lab. Knox picked up something else. While recalibrating the long-range antenna, again, he started hearing clicks. At first, we thought it was residual signal bounce, but then he froze. Morse. He translated fast, scribbling it on the inside of an ammo box with a Sharpie. Echo Talon, stay down, they remember. Boone thought it was some Black Ops warning, like someone upstream was watching our mission implode. But Knox checked the metadata. Sir, that signal's been looping, on a dead band, since before we landed. We traced the signal, weak, embedded under the static like a parasite, and followed it into the jungle. 3 clicks out, near a bend in the stream, Alvarez found something under the ferns. A rusted satellite dish, cracked in 2, sun-bleached and crawling with vines. Its wires led underground. Knox scraped away the topsoil. A hatch, half buried. Soviet markings barely visible under corrosion and lichen. Next to it, a slab of broken concrete with hand-carved glyphs, circles with slashes, mirrored characters, and a triangle inside a square. Alvarez whispered, "I've seen that before. On the tree bark yesterday. It's a pattern." The hatch was sealed tight. I didn't want to open it, but I already knew we would. From deep inside that hatch, without power, without pressure, a single distant thud echoed upward. 3 knocks, deliberate, like it knew we'd come. It took us 2 hours to breach the hatch. Boone rigged a thermite strip, quiet but final. The metal squealed like it didn't want to give. When the heat settled and we pried it open, a wave of rot and ozone hit us, like burnt hair soaked in swamp water. The air felt dense, artificial. Inside, a rusted ladder leading straight down into pitch black. No lights, no readings, no temperature variance. I took point. Knox followed with a modded shoulder cam. The feed cut in and out, static chewing at the corners. At 20 feet down, we reached a small chamber, 7 by 7 feet. No doors, just rusted walls, old cables, and a cracked monitor bolted to the bulkhead. The screen flickered, then blinked to life. An American face, uniformed, eyes wide, pale skin under red light. A recording. He whispered, "They watch through the dirt. They learn the shape of your face. They remember." Then the feed looped, again and again. Knox checked the file date, 1961, pre-war, pre-anything we should have been involved in. "Sir, this was here before Vietnam." On the opposite wall, etched into the rust, was a mural, carved by hand. Hundreds of helmeted silhouettes kneeling around a sigil, the same one from the glyph slab. Above it, a symbol I couldn't unsee, a predator's head with hollow eyes, mouth open, flanked by triangles like warning markers. That's when Alvarez lost it. He started mumbling, "We've been here before. They said our names in my sleep." He slumped in the corner, nails digging into his arms, carving circles over and over until his sleeves turned wet. We pulled him out. He kept screaming, "They remember. They remember." And somewhere above the canopy, something howled back. From the tree line, Boone swore he saw a shadow matching Alvarez's stance, mimicking him, saluting him. We doubled perimeter watches that night. Boone refused to leave the roof, eyes locked through his NV scope. Knox rotated between trying to repair comms and checking on Alvarez, who lay muttering under a poncho like it offered protection. I kept a journal, not out of habit. Orders. Holloway wanted field logs on every op, especially ones this far off books. I found myself rereading the same sentence over and over. We were Echo Talon. We weren't recon. We were the cleanup crew for missions that didn't exist. There were no birds now, no night bugs, not even wind through the trees. Just that same stillness, the kind that builds in the lungs like pressure before an IED goes off. At 0300, Knox called me over to the CROW tower. "Sir, watch this." He pulled up stills from our trail cameras. One by one, time-stamped frames showed faint silhouettes, humanoid, but wrong. Long arms, no gear, no facial features, just black shapes standing still, always facing camp. And every photo, they were saluting. Boone confirmed. None of them showed up in thermal, not once. "It's like they ain't heat-based life forms," he muttered. "Or they're wearing our faces without knowing how to use them." Then we heard it. Not a roar, not a growl, just static. Rising from every headset, synced across every channel. Embedded in it was Morse code, slow and ragged, like something trying to spell words with a broken tongue. I wrote it down, line by line. Took me a minute to translate. SEEKSHAPECOPY. I didn't tell the others. Alvarez stopped muttering, then sat bolt upright and whispered, "They're trying to learn how to be us." Knox barely slept. I could hear him rewinding the trail cam footage on a loop, whispering timestamps to himself like a mantra. Boone kept his rifle trained outward, scanning the tree line with the patience of a sniper who knew he wasn't hunting anything human. We ran another patrol sweep at dawn, just me and Boone. As we approached the south ridge, the jungle looked wrong, like the terrain had shifted overnight. Trees we'd marked now faced different angles, and our path had rerouted itself without explanation. Boone stopped cold. "You hear that?" I listened. Static again, but not from comms. It was ambient, like it lived in the air itself. A low electrical groan, barely audible, yet thick enough to raise the hairs on my arms. Then we saw it. Crouched near one of our old markers was a creature, taller than a man, but hunched. Covered in matted fur and black sinew, its limbs were too long, ending in hands that flexed like they were feeling the air. But its face, one eye was hollow, just a deep socket, as if scooped out. The other was a wet bioluminescent orb that pulsed red and blue like a malfunctioning signal light. It didn't move, didn't growl, just turned its head, slowly, and mimicked Boone's crouch, detail for detail. Boone's trigger finger twitched. "Sir, you want me to drop it?" But I couldn't speak, couldn't look away. The thing slowly rose, its joints bending the wrong way, and walked backward into the trees, still facing us, still mimicking. Back at camp, we found fresh boot prints circling our tents, and one pair matched mine. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did, not really. We stayed in a staggered perimeter around the fire pit, what was left of it. The jungle had gone dead again. No wind, no distant calls, just the low snap of embers and the sound of Flint breathing like a man waiting to be shot. Alvarez kept rubbing his arms raw. I didn't stop him. We'd sent 2 flares. No response. Reggie tried rigging a field antenna using broken cable and copper wire. Nothing but static. Sergeant Ward was gone. Still no signs of a struggle. Just those boots facing us like he walked into something, or followed something. I reviewed the terrain maps again. The ridgelines were wrong. Slopes didn't align anymore. What should have been a west-facing ravine now opened east. Boone swore a tree we passed twice wasn't there 5 minutes earlier. Either he was right, or we were all deep in some shared psychosis. I told Reggie to check our biosensors. He just looked at me and said, "Cap, these things are reading spikes like we're dead already." Flint muttered something about the creature again, the way it looked like me when it saluted. He wasn't joking. We were down to 4. Me, Knox, Flint, and Alvarez. Alvarez kept mumbling, "I hear it chewing," over and over. His pupils were blown wide, but there was nothing in the air. No smell, no sound. That was the problem. The jungle was waiting, and somewhere past the trees, something let out one long wet exhale, like it had finally found us. I took the last watch. Didn't assign it. Just stayed up. Let the others sleep, or pretend to. You get used to lying still with your eyes wide open in places like this. Learned that back in Laos, 1962. The fire had mostly gone out. Just a few glowing coals twitching like dying stars. I watched them pulse, trying to ignore the shadows at the edge of camp. How they didn't sway right. How the trees shifted just a little too slow. Knox sat across from me, fiddling with the recorder. We didn't talk. Didn't need to. There was this look on his face, like he was already writing his resignation letter in his head. Then I heard it again, like a tape spool catching. A choked burst of static, followed by something that made my spine lock up. Echo Talon. Status unknown. Echo Talon. Compromised. My own voice. Garbled, distorted, played back like a ghost memory. Knox froze. So did I. He turned the recorder over, popped the battery, yanked the wire. It still kept playing. Just that one phrase, looping. And then, from the far tree line, something stepped forward. Not fast, not threatening, just present. I didn't raise my weapon. I already knew it wouldn't matter. Its shape was wrong. Legs bent backward, upper limbs too long. Skin matte black, with pulsing veins that shimmered when it moved. One eye, hollow. The other glowing faintly like a coal sack nebula. It didn't growl. It didn't charge. It raised its arm and saluted me, exactly like I had days ago. Knox whispered, "Sir, why does it know how to do that?" I didn't return the salute. I think part of me knew, right then, that it wasn't over. Wouldn't be. Not for Echo Talon. Not for me. We ran a cold op. Black Valley retrieval. No air support. No follow-up. And I sure as hell wasn't cleared to be the last one standing. But I was. Knox vanished sometime before dawn. No sounds, no struggle, just gone. Left his pack neatly zipped by the fire, radio on repeat, static humming like a lullaby. By midday, I started walking. Didn't know where. Didn't care. GPS was useless. Compass spun. Even the sun felt off. Hung too low. Too red. I passed the bunker again. Thought about torching it, sealing the whole valley in fire. But I remembered the mural. The one etched into that far wall. Dozens of helmets. Dozens of sigils. The same symbol we found on trees, rocks, and bunker panels. At the center, a towering figure, saluting. And beneath it, scratched in Cyrillic, "They come in cycles." I made it to the extraction zone, barely, radioed in a code I hadn't used since Berlin. They came in silent, no insignias, no chatter. Medics didn't ask questions. They just looked at me like they knew. Back stateside, the reports were buried. Hostile fauna, no enemy activity. Personnel KIA, 5. That last part was almost true. They never found the others. Sometimes, I see movement at the edge of the tree line near my cabin. Not close, just far enough to stay out of focus. Sometimes I hear my own voice calling out from the radio I threw away months ago. And sometimes, I salute without realizing it. Echo Talon. Status unknown. Echo Talon. Compromised.